Hello, hello, hello. My name is Anna, and if you are new to my channel, welcome. It is so nice to have you. And if you're returning, welcome back. It has been nice to have you. Today, I'm gonna skip the long intros because let me tell you something, okay? Let me tell you, I have been dealing with some shadows today. Oh, that was deep. Okay, that was deep. I did not intend for it to get this deep. I mean physical shadows. I don't mean mental shadows, or do I? Basically, I set up to record this video like an hour and a half ago, and it has been a challenge trying to find like the right angle because I put it over this side and it like I had this weird shadow falling across my face and it looked kind of like weird, and though we're going with the spooky vibe anyway, I just wasn't feeling it. And I think what we've got going on here, is like a lot more flattering, I think, as an angle. Today we are going to be talking about another kind of paranormal, supernatural topic. Something that I have been really interested in for a while now. It's called Timeslips. Before I get into the video though, I'm sure as you can already hear, I'm gonna be doing this in a bit more of like a soft spoken kind of a vibe, maybe slipping in and out of a whisper from time to time, but I thought I would try this out, see how it goes, see if you like it. Let me know down below which you prefer, or if you prefer like a mix of the two. Yeah, let me know. And also, before we fully get into the video, I know I said no long intro, but I'm gonna be chewing some gum because I like it. I don't know how you guys feel about gum chewing videos, but I actually really like them every now and then. That wasn't as loud as I thought. I don't know why that was such a suspicious putting of the gum into the mouth. It was totally an accident. The brand of gum that I'm chewing right now is Airwaves. I have a friend who every time he puts in an airwave, he sneezes one time. Anyway, if you are not familiar with what a time slip is, actually I have a really good definition of the word time slip that I got from the Psy Encyclopedia online. And I'm also going to link that article because I'll be referring to a story from that article later on, and I'm using so much material from it that I just feel it's fair to cite that. The term time slip refers to a rare type of apparitional experience in which the percipient appears to have been momentarily transported back in time, observing their environment as it might have been in an earlier period. It is also referred to as retrocognition. So basically what this is when people feel like, or it looks like, they have somehow traveled back in time or forwards. I'm not sure, but I think the only known cases are traveling back in time, retrocognition as they call it. The most famous case is a case that I am going to read to you guys about two women who claim to have traveled back in time to Versailles during the time of Marie Antoinette. There is obviously more science behind it, but I'm not claiming to be a scientist, although I have in recent times been trying to get more into the kind of science behind the phenomena that I find so fascinating. Just to understand more about what is actually going on, because there's a lot of theories about why this happens, but I think one of the biggest ones is some people believe that time is happening not chronologically but more in parallel, so everything you can think of, any era in time, any moment in time, is happening simultaneously in parallel. I don't know if I'm doing justice to that. To my understanding, that's what I've heard. So people think you can, maybe there's thin places where you can slip in and out of different times, is basically how I've come to understand it. Again, I'm not claiming to be very well versed on that side of things. I'm just reading these stories because I find them fascinating. I'm gonna get into the first story, which is one that I found on Reddit. It is from a user called the Daisy Cutter. By the way, I'm reading off of a thing here, so that's why I'm looking down. They go, "Hey folks, thought I would share a story that happened to myself and my best friend about 10 years ago. I'm new to Reddit, but I'm a longtime experiencer of the supernatural and weirdness, and just wanted to share an experience as I've had a great time checking out yours. Myself and friend were leaving another friend's apartment after an evening of hanging out, watching clips, having a laugh, all cool. We proceed to leave the friend's house, and we are taking what is known as the back road around our community. With our location in regards to the main strip, we were super close to this one, and since it was a regular road used, it was in great shape to use. So blah blah blah, we leave the house, we eventually come to the stop sign, which allows you to make the right hand turn onto this particular road. This road is about 30 to 40 second drive until you reach the community. Super quick, as the speed limit is 70 kilometers per hour. Before moving from the stop, we both take note of the time as it's a Monday night and we both had to work in the morning. It was 1:01 a.m. for sure. We take the right turn from the stop for a bit of a straightaway. There's a slight right bend in the road, and you drive up the gradual hill to a left bend, and you're there. We're driving, gaining speed for the limit, go around the first bend in the road. All of a sudden, it's foggy. We continue up the hill at 70 plus km per hour and come to the left-hand bend in the road. As we're going into the bend, we both feel like we skipped. Sort of the feeling you get when you get a little shock. You jump a bit and notice something happened. As we're going into the left-hand bend and both feel this skip, we are in fact going into the right-hand turn at the bottom of the hill again. Obviously, this gave us quite a start, and we noticed that the clock now said 1:14 a.m., and we were doing this all over again. The second time up over the hill was fine, and it's the only occurrence of that nature that I've experienced. Plenty of others, but nothing like this. I dropped my friend off at home shortly after, and upon getting out, he said that we were never to speak of it again. Ha. Which really, you can't blame him. This is 100% truthful, where 40 seconds took us 13 minutes. I started looking into what could have been a possible explanation for such a thing at the time, and came up with a book that sounds like it could have some insight to things of this nature. Or at least some folks who experienced similar. So this is like from a book that this person is referencing. Like, he's trying to explain like what could have possibly happened. One aspect of... Hold on. Okay, so this is excerpt from my notes from years ago. One aspect of that strangeness is covered with great intelligence and forthrightness in Jenny Randall's book Time Storms. Amazing evidence for time warps, space rifts, and time travel. In it, she makes a convincing case that time travel is not only possible, but that it may be taking place regularly around the world. Randall lays the groundwork for such a possibility by explaining the current scientific thinking about quantum physics and the nature of time in layman's terms. Her explanations are clear and pretty easy to understand, which is quite a feat for such a complicated subject. So these are just like a bunch of anecdotes that this author has collected, and they all have one common element: a peculiar energy cloud that can transport people and very often their vehicles into some unknown dimension. The results for these people can be missing time from just minutes to days. Disorientation, what Randall calls the Oz factor, which I presume is a reference to The Wizard of Oz. Teleportation over impossible distances, electronic failure, gravity anomalies, and other phenomena. These peculiar glowing clouds, time storms, just may be an explanation for a variety of paranormal phenomena, including ghosts, spirits, synchronicity, deja vu, UFOs, and what is thought of alien abductions. Here are just a few true accounts from time storms. Putre, Chile, 1977, at 3:50 a.m. on April 24th. During army training exercises, a guard saw two fuzzy violet lights descending from the mountain and heading their way. At 4:15 a.m., Corporal Armando Valdez set out into the dark to investigate them. He returned 15 minutes later, but from the opposite direction in which he set out. He seemed to be in a kind of trance, muttering, "You do not know who we are or where we come from." Inexplicably, the corporal had several days' growth of beard, and his watch had stopped at 4:15, but showed a date of April 30th. I'm gonna skip some of them. Sorry. You wouldn't know that if I didn't tell you. Somerset, England, 1974. On July 28th, Peter Williamson was having a barbecue in his backyard garden, which was interrupted by a heavy electrical storm. His dog, spooked by the threatening atmosphere, covered under a tree. Peter went to rescue the animal. There was a bright flash, and Peter vanished into thin air. Police were called, and a thorough investigation and search were conducted. Without success. At 8 a.m., 3 days later, Peter was found in some nearby bushes with one foot in a pond. I've had that happen before. Oxford, Maine, 1975. At 3 a.m. on October 27th, David Stevens, 21, and an 18-year-old friend were in a wooded area when they heard a strange sound. They got in their car to go investigate, and the vehicle was soon enveloped in a colored glow. There was a blink in reality, and the two instantly found themselves about a mile away, with the car pointing in the opposite direction. They subsequently suffered various physical abnormalities, including severe disorientation. So, it goes on to say, this is just a small sampling of the many true accounts offered in Randall's book, and she says there are many, many others she didn't include. The time storm phenomenon seems to happen with some regularity, and many might never be reported. Is there any hard evidence for these bizarre occurrences? Randall's points to an incident that took place in Florida, in which a time storm may have been captured on videotape. In 1996, at 11:16 p.m., surveillance cameras were routinely monitoring and taping the area around a small factory. The videotape reveals what happened. As a worker approached one of the gates, a fuzzy white glow appeared and covered the area where the man was standing. There was a brief electrical interference to the cameras, but when they cleared, the man had disappeared. 1 hour and 50 minutes later, the cameras recorded his sudden reappearance. He was on all fours. He was on all fours, violently ill, and suffered a 2-hour gap in his memory. And there's a video for that. Okay. Was it aliens? Was it a time-traveling cloud? We'll never know. But it was sure freaky. Thanks for reading. So basically what I'm gathering is that obviously what happened with this guy, this like weird fuzzy white cloud like came over them, and they felt like they had a gap in time basically that they couldn't account for. And he goes on to cite this book that talks about other people who have had this kind of experience, like an unexplainable gap in time that occurred basically simultaneously with this weird like white cloud. And some people think it's aliens. Some people think it's... what else was it? People don't really know like why it happens, but apparently this is like a phenomenon that has occurred, been recorded in multiple historical instances, and people don't really know like what the real source of it is. The last thing I want to read to you guys for this video, the kind of OG like Timeslips story. I don't know if it's the first recorded case, but I think it's probably the most famous at this point. It's kind of the one that started the whole like, okay, maybe this is actually a thing. This is the Versailles one, and again, this is from that article from the Psy Encyclopedia, which I will link down below if you guys are interested. So yeah, I'll just get right into the article. Okay, so the case is called Moberly and Jourdain. So for a bit of context, this story takes place in the early 1900s, and it's two women who are both accomplished English academics, one Charlotte Ann Elizabeth Moberly and Eleanor Frances Jourdain. So they're the two of them are traveling together in Paris. Supposedly also they had a history of, they were known to have, they've had a history of like paranormal kind of contact, like experiences. So just putting that out there. So the pair visited Paris as tourists in the summer of 1901 as a means to become better acquainted and to help Moberly decide whether to hire Jourdain as her deputy. According to their account, on the 10th of August 1901, they visited the Palace of Versailles. Being somewhat disappointed with the building, they decided to walk on the grounds to the Petit Trianon, a chateau in the style of a small country house that had been built by Louis XV for the Marquis de Pompadour and was occupied by Queen Marie Antoinette after the accession of her husband, Louis XVI. Some 3 months after the experience, the women wrote independent accounts. Both stated that they passed the Grand Trianon, a larger chateau, at which point their accounts diverge in some details. According to Moberly, they passed to the left of the Grand Trianon instead of following a broad green drive that she later learned would have led them straight to the Petit Trianon. They passed by it and went up a lane. Moberly then saw a woman shaking a white cloth out of the window of a building, and recalled being surprised that her companion, whose French was better than hers, did not take the opportunity to ask directions. However, Jourdain did not see this woman. For her part, she described passing some farm buildings where agricultural implements were lying about, including an old-fashioned plow. After passing to the right of some other buildings, they were faced with a choice of 3 paths, and it was now that Jourdain first felt they had lost their way. They chose the central path where both women saw 2 men, whom they took to be gardeners despite their dignified attire. Long grayish-green coats with small 3-cornered hats. As they also saw a wheelbarrow and spade and asked for directions to the Petit Trianon, the men told them to continue straight on. Jourdain felt their tone to be oddly casual and mechanical. Jourdain then noticed a woman and a girl of 13 or 14 standing by the doorway of a solidly built cottage. They were unusually dressed with kerchiefs tucked under their bodices. The woman seemed to be about to pass a jug to the girl. The visitors then entered a wood where both saw a circular garden kiosk with a man sitting near it. Jourdain now spoke of a feeling of depression and loneliness as if she were walking in her sleep. Moberly too said she was struck by an extraordinary depression. The cloaked man looked at Moberly, who found his dark and rough-skinned face to be most repulsive, its expression odious. Jourdain described his skin as marked by smallpox and his expression as very evil. A handsome young man suddenly appeared, running toward the ladies. He was wearing a cloak, a Spanish-style large-brimmed hat, and buckled shoes. Mesdames, il ne faut pas passer par là, or par ici, as Jourdain recalled it. He said animatedly, among many other words they could not understand because of his unfamiliar accent. Both were struck by the oddness of his smile, but they followed his direction. Walking further through the woods, they came to the Petit Trianon. A lady sat on its terrace holding a paper at arm's length as if she were sketching, then looked at the visitors. Moberly described her as pretty but not young, fair-haired and wearing a white hat, a summer dress with a handkerchief-like arrangement on her shoulders over top of her bodice, a pale green fichu, and a full short skirt, old-fashioned and rather unusual. Jourdain did not see this lady at all, though she wrote, "As we approached the terrace, I remember drawing my skirt away with a feeling as though someone were near, and I had to make room, and then wondering why I did." Heading toward the house, they were accosted by a young man, according to Moberly, or boy, according to Jourdain, coming out of what seemed to be an adjoining house. He offered to show them the way into the house, and this brought them back almost to where they had started. In the front entrance hall, things returned to normal as they were kept waiting, so as not to interrupt the arrival of a wedding party, and they entered a carriage to leave. The two women did not at first talk to each other about what had happened. Then, a week later, Moberly asked Jourdain whether she felt the Petit Trianon was haunted, and was answered with an immediate yes. They did not converse more until 3 months later, when Moberly mentioned the sketching lady. Both were struck by the fact that one of them had seen her clearly, and the other not at all. Jourdain realized that 10th of August was the anniversary of the last day of the royal family's freedom. A French friend said that she had heard that annually on a certain day in August, Marie Antoinette was still seen sitting outside the Petit Trianon, and the people around her would also be seen engaged in their usual activities. Moberly wrote, "We wondered whether we had inadvertently entered within an act of the Queen's memory when alive, and whether this explained our curious sensation of being shut in and oppressed. What more likely, we thought, than that during those hours in the hall of the assembly or in the conciergerie, she had gone back in such vivid memory to other Augusts spent at Trianon, that some empress of it was imparted to the place." Basically, to sum up, these two women feel it, while it appears to some that they may have somehow slipped into either like a memory, or somehow they managed to, maybe they were ghosts, maybe the people they saw were ghosts, or it was like a residual haunting, or they did somehow slip back in time to the time of Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI, potentially. And this was like an instance of a time slip. There was no strange cloud in this instance, but yeah, people have different theories on what happened, and to my knowledge, this is like one of the most famous cases of time slips. Yeah, I find it really fascinating. I love these stories. This video has gotten quite long now, so I'm probably going to sign off and leave y'all to it. Hopefully you're asleep by now. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll probably make another one like this very soon. But yeah, let me know what you thought. If you like the soft spoken, if you like the whispers, if you like the cupped whispers better. But anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment or subscribe if you'd like to see more content from me. Let me know if you have any interesting time slip or paranormal stories down below. Yeah, that's about it. I hope you have a great night, and